what's up? Jason here, and in this video, I'm gonna teach you 80% of what you need to know for video. Not just where the buttons are, but why they matter. Whether you've got a DSLR, mirrorless camera, or even a smartphone, by the end of this video, you'll know how to get clean cinematic shots with the right exposure, the right motion blur, and the right overall look. If you watch this video all the way through, you're gonna learn what takes most people months or even years to understand. You're gonna fully understand how to pick up your camera and get a perfect exposure every single time. I'm not just gonna show you what all these settings do and how to find them inside your camera's menu, but I'll also show you real world examples. And I'm gonna show you exactly how to do it yourself, no matter what camera system you're using. My name is Jason Neistat, and I've been taking photos and making movies, music videos, TV shows, and commercials for over 30 years. I'm so excited to share everything that I've learned and help you become better filmmakers. By the end of this video, you should feel absolutely confident to get out there and start shooting some great cinematic shots. Video is just photography multiplied. Instead of one image, you're capturing many images, called frames, every second. You put them together in rapid succession, and our brain interprets it as motion. The cinematic standard for any film or cinematic piece is 24 frames per second, or 24 FPS. Technically, it's 23.976, but we're not going to get nerdy here, so 24 is the number you need to remember. Now, why does that matter? Because the frame rate you choose affects how your footage feels. If you record someone walking down the street at 24 frames per second, it feels really natural. But if you record that same person walking at 60 frames per second and play it back in real time, it suddenly feels cheap, like a soap opera or a news report. But if I shoot at 60 frames per second and then slow it down on a 24 frames per second timeline, we have plenty of captured images for awesome cinematic slow motion. So here's the rule of thumb. You always want to use 24 frames per second. Do that for almost all of your normal video. Only use 60 or 120 frames per second for shots that you intend to slow down. So let's demonstrate real quick again. Here's a quick shot of water coming out of a faucet at 24 frames per second. And here's the same shot in 120 frames per second, intentionally slowed down. See how smooth that is? Now let's talk shutter speed. Now this is where most beginners tend to get tripped up. In photography, shutter speed mostly controls how much light hits the sensor. The longer the shutter stays open, the more light can get in. The quicker it closes, the less light can get in. Now this is still true for video, but the main role of shutter speed in video is controlling motion blur. And this is the most important concept when trying to make your videos look cinematic. The golden rule is called the 180-degree shutter rule, and every professional filmmaker will follow this 90% of the time. And it's actually pretty easy to do. Basically, it says that your shutter speed should be double your frame rate. Always, if you want that cinematic look. So if you're shooting at 24 frames per second, you want to set your shutter speed to double that, 1/48. Or actually we'll use 150 because most cameras round to the nearest option, and that's close enough. If you want to do slow motion and you're shooting at 60 frames per second, then you want to move your shutter speed to 1/120th of a second, double that. Super slow motion at 120 frames per second, you want to use 1/240th of a second, and so on. If you stick to that rule, you're always going to have natural looking motion blur. That's the kind of blur our eyes are used to seeing in real life, and that's why it looks so great in film. If you don't stick to this 180-degree shutter rule and say change your shutter speed to something slower, like 1/25th of a second, everything's gonna look really dreamy and smeared. If you go super fast, like 1/500th of a second, it gets jittery and harsh. Think war movies like Saving Private Ryan or The Bourne Ultimatum. A quick and easy to understand example is filming a fan. Go try it. Watch this fan spinning at 1/50th of a second versus 1/500th shutter speed. You'll notice a difference in blur, it's pretty obvious. As with anything, once you learn the rules, you can break them. There are times when breaking the 180-degree rule works. A fast shutter can create tension or chaos, and a slow shutter can make things feel surreal. But for now, just stick to that 180-degree shutter rule while you learn. So now the exposure triangle, I'm sure you've heard of it. ISO, aperture, and shutter. Now these three things work together to control exposure, which is basically just how bright or dark your image is. Let's go one by one. ISO. We call this fake light. ISO tells your camera to digitally brighten the image. A lower ISO is cleaner. It looks much better. A higher ISO will bring you more light, but it also brings in more noise, and that's bad. 100 to 400 is what you're shooting for. Anything above 1600, and you're usually starting to see that gritty TV static style noise, especially in video. This is one main selling point in cameras. A more expensive camera can go to a much higher ISO without seeing that noise. Here's a quick example that really shows this. Watch as we cover our camera lens so it's completely dark. Now look as I bump up the ISO from 100 to 6400, you can see all that noise crawling in. You always want to use ISO last. It's the final adjustment when you just can't do it with shutter speed or aperture. Aperture. A lot of people call this the eye of the lens. Aperture is measured in f-stops like f1.4, f2.8, f5.6. Aperture controls how wide your lens opens to let the light in. Wide open is more light and also a shallow depth of field. That's the awesome blur that looks so great. A lower f-stop is a blurrier background. A higher f-stop gives you a sharper background. Here's a shot with an f-stop of 1.2. It's super blurry and that background looks amazing. Now check out the same shot at f11. You'll notice that everything is in focus, everything close up and far away. So this is how you get creative. When you want your subject to really stand out, you always want to open your aperture. Open as wide as you can to get the attention on the subject. You want a wide shot of a landscape or a battle scene where you can see everything? Well, that's where you step down, bring that f-stop to a higher number. So we already covered how shutter speed affects motion blur, but it also affects exposure. A slower shutter speed makes everything brighter. A faster shutter speed makes everything darker. And this is what the exposure triangle is. It takes all three of these things to make a good exposure, and they can all change your image creatively as well. Aperture controls light and depth of field. Shutter speed controls light and motion blur. ISO is your backup in case you need more light, but it also introduces more noise. Now, one of the most important things you can buy for your camera is an ND filter, which stands for neutral density filter. So let's say it's noon, it's super sunny, and you want to film with a wide open aperture of f1.8 for that cinematic blur, and you want to keep your shutter speed at 1/50th of a second for proper motion blur like we just talked about. But with so much light outside, it's impossible. Your image is totally overexposed and there's nothing you can do about it. This is where an ND filter will save the day every single time. Think of ND filters like sunglasses for your lens. It lets you cut down the amount of light while you're able to keep your settings locked in for all those creative reasons. Check out this shot without an ND filter. It's blown out and completely unusable. Now, take the same shot, same settings with an ND filter. It's a perfect exposure, and I still get to keep that blurry background and my cinematic motion by sticking to the 180-degree rule. Now, I recommend getting something called a variable ND. This allows you to twist to adjust it on the fly from lighter to darker. Get one that matches your lens diameter and make sure it's good quality. A cheap one could totally ruin your image. Now, if you have more than one lens, I recommend getting an ND filter that fits the largest lens, and then you can get a step-up ring for the smaller lenses. A step-up ring basically screws onto the front of your lens and it makes it bigger. It just stays there, so you can just use one ND filter on any of them. This will save you a ton of money. So white balance tells your camera what pure white is supposed to look like, depending on the light source. If you get this wrong, everything looks off, too orange, or too blue, and it just looks gross. Temperatures of light are measured in what's called Kelvin degrees. Now here's some numbers that'll be a good idea for you just to try to memorize if you can. Shade is 6,500 Kelvin and up. Daylight is typically around 5,500 Kelvin, and tungsten bulbs are around 3,200 Kelvin. Example. So here's a shot set wrong to tungsten, but it's actually shot in daylight. Notice everything's blue. Now color corrected or shot with the right white balance in the first place, it looks really natural. If you want perfect skin tones, you can use something called a gray card. You can set a custom white balance inside your camera and lock it in. So a pro tip is never leave your white balance on auto. This is almost the worst thing you can do for video. It can shift mid-shot and it'll completely ruin your scene. It's also harder to color grade because it's constantly changing. It's better to lock it in once, even if it's wrong, then you can fix it in post and it doesn't change mid-shot. People will forgive you for shaky video, but not bad sound. If your mic sounds like this and you just can't understand a word, you've just lost them completely. Start with a basic shotgun mic, like the Rode Video Micro. You can put right on top of your camera, point it at your subject, get close, and you're already 80% better than built-in mics on the camera. Later, when you have more money, you can upgrade to a lavalier mic or a condenser mic if you're doing voiceovers or interviews. So once your settings are dialed in, don't just lock down your camera and call it a day. Motion is a huge part of what makes video engaging. Here are some terms that you should know. Pan is rotating left and right. Tilt is up and down. A push in, you move towards your subject. Pull out, you move away to reveal more information. Tracking follow shots, just stay with your subject the whole time, no matter where they go. Here's an example of a locked off static shot. It looks fine, but motion can really help us convey a mood or emotion. Now here's the same shot with a slow push in. Notice how it feels intentional, and that one movement can really help tell a story. All right, deep breath. We've covered a lot. Frame rate, shutter speed, aperture, ISO, ND filters, white balance, audio, camera movement. Those are the concepts of running your camera in video mode. It may feel overwhelming right now, but the more you practice, the more this will become second nature. In the next episode, I'll break down how to choose your first video camera, what matters, what doesn't, and how not to get ripped off. If you're interested in getting your footage into the computer and editing your first video, I made a quick get up and running video on how to edit in a program that's completely free. It's called DaVinci Resolve, and if you're interested, just click on the thumbnail right here. Until then, get out there, go practice, and go make something awesome. I'll see you in the next one.